Mark had just pulled out of the driveway. I stood by the window, watching his taillights disappear into the night. The air was still too quiet and I could already feel the emptiness creeping in around the corners of the house. A 5-day business trip in Ghana, he'd said. High-level meetings. Important negotiations. He'd kissed me on the forehead like always, murmured, "I'll call you every night," and climbed into the car like everything between us was perfect. I waved as he drove off, a tired smile plastered on my face. But the truth was, things hadn't been perfect for a long time. It wasn't just the distance his job created or the long silences over dinner. It was the way he didn't touch me anymore, not really. Not like he used to. It was the way he saw right through me, as if I'd faded into the wallpaper of our marriage. I'd started to wonder if I was still visible to him at all. So, when the knock came an hour later, it startled me. I wasn't expecting anyone. I padded to the door barefoot, still in the silky robe I'd changed into after Mark left. When I opened it, I blinked in surprise. Jake. Mark's best friend. His best man at our wedding. The man who had always been too handsome for his own good, with that roguish stubble and lazy, confident smile that made women giggle like schoolgirls. I remembered how he'd danced with me at the wedding reception, spinning me under fairy lights, making me laugh until my cheeks ached. "Hey," he said casually, lifting a bottle of Merlot. "Just checking on you. Didn't want you drinking alone." I hesitated, then smiled. "You always know how to make an entrance." He stepped inside like he belonged there. Like he had every right to. I closed the door behind him, acutely aware of the sudden weight of his presence. He handed me the wine and our fingers brushed. Something in my chest fluttered. I brushed it off. We settled on the couch. I lit a candle and dimmed the lights, trying to pretend it was just a friendly visit. Just a little wine between friends. But the moment he poured the first glass and sat closer than necessary, I knew something had shifted. "Remember that time Mark got food poisoning the night before your wedding?" Jake said, chuckling. "I had to convince the pastor to delay the rehearsal. You were freaking out." I laughed. "I was so sure the wedding was cursed." "You were glowing that day," he said, his voice softer now. I remember thinking, damn, Mark's a lucky man. I looked at him then. Really looked. There was something different in his eyes. Something unspoken, restrained but burning. And when his hand brushed mine, just lightly like a whisper, I didn't pull away. My breath caught. That single touch set something loose in me. A spark I thought I'd buried long ago. The weight of years of being overlooked, ignored, dismissed. It lifted just slightly. In its place came the dangerous thrill of being seen. Desired. Jake's eyes didn't look at me like a friend. They looked at me like I was a woman. A woman he wanted. I shifted in my seat, but he leaned in a fraction closer. Not enough to break the rules, but enough to bend them. The air between us crackled. "You okay?" he asked, voice low. "Yeah," I whispered. "Just tired." He tilted his head. "I could leave, or stay. If you want." My throat went dry. I should have said no. I should have told him to go. But instead I took another sip of wine. I said nothing. Jake took that silence as permission. He reached out, brushed a strand of hair from my face. His fingers lingered, tracing my jawline. I felt the heat bloom in my chest, pulse thudding in my ears. My robe had slipped slightly off one shoulder and I saw his eyes drop. Just for a moment. Just long enough. "You're beautiful, you know," he murmured. It had been so long since I'd heard those words, they almost hurt. I set my glass down. He watched me. I stood slowly, unsure of what I was doing, or maybe too sure. I walked to the window, heart pounding, needing air, needing space. But he followed, stopping just behind me. I felt his breath on my neck. I closed my eyes. "This is wrong," I said. "Maybe," he said. "But it doesn't feel wrong." His hand slid around my waist. My body tensed and then melted. I turned to face him, chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. "Jake." He kissed me. Soft at first, like a question. Then deeper, bolder as I kissed him back. And in that moment my world tipped on its axis. The guilt hadn't hit yet. Not fully. All I felt was the rush of heat, the hunger of touch, the dizzying sense of being wanted. But being alive. When we finally pulled apart, I was trembling. "We can't," I said, but my voice lacked conviction. "Then tell me to leave," he said, eyes dark. I looked at the door. Then at him. I didn't say a word. And I didn't stop him when he took my hand and led me to the stairs. Up until that night, I thought loneliness was just about being alone. But real loneliness? It's when you lie beside someone every night and still feel unseen. That night, I let someone see me. And I knew everything would change. It started raining around midnight. At first, just the soft patter against the windows. Then thunder rumbled like a warning from the sky, low and steady. Lightning flashed, turning the living room into a wash of ghostly white. The lights flickered once, twice, and then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the house, save for the flicker of candles Jake had lit an hour ago. We sat across from each other on the floor, the wine bottle between us now nearly empty. I should have stopped drinking long ago. Not because I was drunk, but because the warmth in my chest had nothing to do with the alcohol. Jake looked at me differently tonight. And worse, I was looking back. He leaned on one arm, eyes locked on mine. You ever think about what life would look like if things had gone differently? I blinked. What do you mean? He shrugged, took a slow sip from his glass. If you hadn't met Mark first. I stared at him, the air thickening. The silence between us wasn't comfortable anymore. It was buzzing. Tense. Every breath felt like it vibrated in the space between us. I try not to think about that, I said. But you do, he replied softly. I didn't answer. As I had. Too many times. Jake was everything Mark wasn't. Kind of warm. Curious. Where Mark had become cold and practical, Jake was still impulsive and emotionally present. It made things dangerous. It made me vulnerable. I see how he treats you, Jake continued. Like you're part of the furniture. Like you stopped mattering the moment the honeymoon ended. I looked away. That's not fair. You don't know what our marriage is like. I've known him longer than you have, he said, voice low. And I know you. I've seen the way you shrink when he walks into the room. The way your smile fades. I swallowed hard. Jake, stop. Why? Because this is wrong, I whispered. He's your best friend. And you're his wife, Jake replied. But you're also a woman. One who deserves to be seen. The next crack of thunder was closer. Louder. My heart beat fast, not from fear but anticipation. Then came the moment. He reached out, fingers brushing my wrist, tracing a slow circle against my skin. I didn't move away. His touch sent heat rushing to places I hadn't felt alive in months. Years maybe. He didn't rush. He just stared into my eyes like he was waiting. For permission. Or for me to stop him. I didn't. He leaned in, his breath warm against my cheek. We shouldn't, I whispered. But we want to, he said. And he kissed me. It was slow. Hungry. Like he'd been waiting forever. My body responded before my mind could catch up. Fingers tangled in his shirt, lips pressing hard against his. It was like flipping a switch. Every part of me that had been numb reignited. I felt wanted. Craved. Like a woman again, not just a wife. Some part of me screamed to stop. Another part roared louder. More. I let him lift me off the floor, carry me upstairs in the dark. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. Our bodies communicated everything we weren't brave enough to say. In the safety of my bedroom, the same bed I shared with Mark, we became something reckless. Wrong. But God, it felt good. My mind warred with guilt. But my body had already made its choice. Jake was gentle at first, then demanding. His hands memorized me, every sigh and shiver. It was intoxicating, this forbidden closeness. He made me forget time, forget loyalty, forget who I was supposed to be. By the time we collapsed into the sheets, sweaty and tangled, the storm outside had begun to fade. I lay there breathless. 1,000 thoughts racing. The weight of what we'd done began to sink in. I've never seen you like this, Jake murmured, brushing hair from my face. You deserve to feel this way. Always. I closed my eyes. I couldn't respond. Not because I didn't believe him, but because I did. That was the problem. The next morning, the sun crept through the window, soft and golden. Jake was still asleep beside me, one arm draped across my waist like it belonged there. The guilt didn't hit immediately. First, there was a sense of strange serenity. I hadn't felt this peaceful waking up in months. But then I turned my head and saw Mark's picture on the nightstand. Us on our wedding day. Smiling. Young. Hopeful. And just like that, the knot in my stomach tightened. I slipped out of bed, pulled on a robe and crept downstairs. I needed air. I needed clarity. I needed to undo time. Only I couldn't. The smell of Jake lingered on my skin. His voice echoed in my ears. You deserve more. The storm outside had passed. But a different one was brewing inside me. I knew things could never go back to the way they were. And worse, I wasn't even sure I wanted them to. The morning after. The sun streamed through the half-closed blinds, casting thin golden lines across the room like prison bars. I blinked against the light, the air thick with the scent of last night. Wine, sweat, shame. My skin still tingled where Jake's hands had been. I shifted slightly, and the ache between my thighs reminded me it hadn't been a dream. I turned my head. Jake lay beside me shirtless with one arm flung over his eyes. He wasn't sleeping. He was smiling. A smug, self-satisfied smile. God, what had I done? I sat up slowly, the sheet clutched against my chest like it could protect me from the truth. My breath came in shallow pulls. The room was silent except for the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards and the distant sound of someone mowing a lawn 2 houses down. My house. My bed. My sin. Jake stirred, rolling over to face me. Morning, beautiful, he said, voice thick with sleep and arrogance. I couldn't look at him. This was a mistake, I whispered, barely able to meet my own voice, let alone his eyes. Jake chuckled, propping himself up on one elbow. You don't mean that. I finally looked at him. Yes, I do. Jake, we can't do this. We crossed a line that never should have even been near. He raised an eyebrow. Why? Because of Mark. The sound of my husband's name in his mouth made my stomach turn. Yes, I snapped. Because of Mark. Because he trusts you. Because you're his best friend. Because I'm his wife. Jake slid off the bed, slowly pulling on his jeans with the same unbothered energy of a man dressing after a quick nap. Look, you can lie to yourself all you want. But I saw you last night. You weren't thinking about Mark then. You were thinking about me. About how I made you feel. I grabbed the robe hanging off the back of the chair and wrapped it tightly around me like armor. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Tell me you didn't feel anything. Tell me that wasn't the first time in years someone actually made you feel alive. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because he was right. The intimacy, the attention, the way he looked at me like I wasn't just a wife but a woman, it had awakened something I thought I had buried. Mark hadn't touched me like that in months. Maybe years. And when he did, it was out of routine, not desire. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I reached for it with trembling fingers. It was Mark. A photo from the airport, standing next to a boarding gate with a grin on his face. Boarded now. Love you, face blowings. I stared at the message, bile rising in my throat. Love you. If only he knew. The guilt hit like a truck. Tears stung the corners of my eyes and I didn't even try to hide them. Jake saw. He walked to the foot of the bed, more serious now. You think I planned this? You think I showed up here last night because I wanted to destroy your marriage? I stayed quiet. I came because I missed you. That's the truth. You were mine once before him. You forget that. I never stopped feeling something. I blinked. What are you talking about? He looked at me then like a man unveiling an old wound. You remember our college days? Before you ever met Mark? We had something even if we never named it. You ended up with him because I was too chicken to say something. And I let you go. I sat down, stunned. That was years ago, Jake. I never stopped watching you, he said softly. Even after the wedding. You looked so beautiful in that dress. I remember thinking, that should have been me standing next to her. I looked away. My heart was pounding for all the wrong reasons. This changes nothing, I whispered, my voice brittle. It changes everything. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, soft and slow. I'll go. But don't kid yourself. This isn't over. It never was. He walked out of the room, the sound of his footsteps fading down the stairs. The door closed with a dull thud. I was alone. Really, truly alone. I curled into myself on the edge of the bed, the silence around me suddenly deafening. The sheet still smelled like him. My body ached in places I hadn't felt awake in years. What had I done? What had I allowed? I got up, stripped the sheets, and threw them into the washing machine like it could rinse the guilt from my bones. I scrubbed the bathroom sink, wiped the counter 3 times, even though it was already clean. I needed to do something, anything to keep from breaking down. But the guilt wasn't going away. It was crawling under my skin, slithering through my mind with every step I took. I picked up my phone again. Mark had sent another message. Miss you already. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I opened the call log. I hovered my thumb over Jake's name. But I didn't call. Not yet. I just sat there, phone in hand, heart in pieces, knowing that no matter what came next, this was only the beginning. Because Jake had been right about one thing. This wasn't over. Not even close. Jake left before sunrise. He kissed my shoulder like he had the right. Like he belonged there. And then he was gone just like that. I locked the door behind him and leaned against it, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. I had crossed a line. There was no pretending anymore. No sweeping this under the rug. Jake had been in our bed. He had touched me, tasted me, whispered things into my skin that no one but my husband should ever say. I spent the morning cleaning. The sheets. The bathroom. Myself. I scrubbed until my fingers were pruned and raw. But no amount of bleach could purify what I'd done. Then came the text. Jake, still thinking about you. Jake, I left my hoodie. Excuse to come back. Jake, Mark doesn't see you. But I do. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Every buzz of my phone made my stomach clench. Mark called in the afternoon. His voice was soft, loving. Too loving. He told me about the conference, the hotel breakfast, how he missed my laugh. I smiled through clenched teeth, murmuring lies like they were prayers. I miss you too. I can't wait for you to come home. But the worst part? Some of it was true. I did miss Mark. I missed the version of him I married. The man who made me feel safe and soft and seen. But that man had slowly disappeared. Replaced by a husband always distracted, always tired, always somewhere else. Jake had filled a void. But he was no cure, just a thrill. A dangerous one. The next day he showed up again. I heard the knock and froze. I knew that rhythm. That lazy, confident knock that didn't ask permission. It assumed it. Jake, you can't keep showing up here, I said as I opened the door, blocking the entrance with my body. He pushed past me. I forgot my hoodie, he said like it was the most innocent thing in the world. I watched him walk into the living room like he owned it. Like he belonged here more than Mark did. He found his hoodie on the armrest and grabbed it, then turned slowly, eyeing me. You're really not going to say it? He asked. Say what? That you miss me. That you think about it. About us. There is no use, Jake, I said, but my voice cracked. That night was a mistake. Jake stepped forward, closing the distance between us. You didn't look like it was a mistake when you moaned my name. I slapped him. I didn't plan to. This happened. The words, the smugness, the guilt twisting inside me. It all erupted. He didn't flinch. Just smiled. You like pretending you're still the loyal wife. But you're not. Not anymore. He walked out, leaving me trembling. That night I dreamed of Mark finding out. Of him packing his bags, his eyes hollow with betrayal. I woke up gasping, covered in sweat. The next few days were worse. Jake started texting less. But when he did, the messages were darker. Jake, you want me to stop? Say it to my face. Jake, I'm not just going to vanish. You let me in. Jake, you're mine now. And then the flowers started arriving. White lilies. Every day. No name on the card. Just, you looked beautiful in red. I hadn't worn red since the night it happened. Paranoia took over. Every sound outside made me flinch. Every knock, every car door. I jumped when my phone buzzed. I started sleeping with it under my pillow. When Mark FaceTimed one evening, I almost dropped the phone. I wasn't ready to look him in the eye. But I forced a smile and adjusted the camera to hide the flowers on the kitchen counter. Are you okay, babe? He asked. You seem off. I'm just tired, I whispered. He nodded, distracted by something in the background. I'll be home day after tomorrow. We'll have dinner. Just us. Sounds perfect, I lied. But nothing about this was perfect. It was a disaster slowly unraveling thread by thread. Then Jake showed up again. This time he didn't knock. He used the spare key under the flower pot. I heard the door open and raced downstairs. What the hell are you doing? I hissed. He held up a bag of takeout. You haven't been eating. Thought I'd bring dinner. You broke in. It's not breaking in if I have a key. You don't live here, Jake. He tilted his head. Maybe I should. That's when I realized he wasn't just obsessed. He was delusional. Jake, you need to leave. This is over. He set the takeout down, took a step toward me. You said that before. But your body keeps saying something else. I said leave. For a moment I thought he'd fight me. But then he smiled, cold and quiet. Hey, I'll go. But remember something, baby. He stepped closer, his voice low and venomous. If I'm out of your life, I can be in Mark's. Best friends, remember? My blood ran cold. He left me standing there, shaking. What had started as a thrill was now a trap. I was tangled in lies, drowning in shame, and Jake was tightening the noose with every visit, every whisper, every reminder of what we'd done. Mark was coming home soon. The lies were piling up like bodies in a graveyard. And Jake? He wasn't going anywhere. Mark's flight had been delayed twice due to weather in Accra. That was the only reason I hadn't yet had a full-blown breakdown. But delays don't last forever. I woke up on Friday with a tight knot in my stomach. I hadn't seen Jake since the night after that morning. He'd been texting, calling, sending voice notes. I ignored most of them except the last one. You're running, baby. But I'm the only one who sees you. I didn't know if it was a threat or a plea. Maybe both. Friday was supposed to be the day I reclaimed my sanity. I cleaned the house, changed the bedsheets, scrubbed away any trace of him. I washed my skin raw in the shower, trying to rinse away the smell of guilt. But nothing felt clean. Not really. At 4:45 p.m. Mark texted. Landed early. Grabbing an Uber. Can't wait to see you. My hands trembled. My heart flipped. He was coming home. I looked around the house like it was a crime scene. Was everything back in place? Had I deleted all the call logs? Cleared the search history? Thrown out Jake's wine glass? I checked everything twice. Then the doorbell rang. Except it wasn't Mark. It was Jake. Standing there in a black hoodie holding another damn bottle of wine like this was some twisted routine now. I stepped outside trying to close the door behind me, but he blocked it with his foot. Don't, I hissed. Mark is on his way home. I know, he said, eyes scanning my face. I just needed to see you. Jake, please. He brushed past me and entered the house like he owned it. My pulse skyrocketed. My vision blurred with panic. What if Mark had decided to surprise me? What if he was already down the street? Jake dropped the wine on the kitchen counter and turned to me slowly. You haven't answered any of my messages. Because it's over. He laughed bitterly. You really think you can just snap your fingers and pretend none of this happened? Yes. I shouted, breath hitching. Because it never should have happened. His jaw clenched. Don't say that. Mark will be here any minute. Please, Jake, go. I'm begging you. He stepped closer. You didn't beg me that night. His words sliced through the air like a knife. My mouth opened, then closed again. I couldn't find the words. Because part of me remembered everything. Every gasp, every touch, every moment I lost myself. And that part of me still wanted him. The shame of it nearly crushed me. I turned away, walking toward the door to open it and shove him out. But then I heard something that made my heart stop. A key turning in the lock. Go upstairs, I hissed at Jake. The guest room. Now. He hesitated. Go. I bolted toward the front door, hair messy, breath shaky, palms sweaty. The door opened. And there he was. Mark. Smiling. Pulling his suitcase behind him, arms wide open for a hug. I stepped into his embrace, heart pounding so hard I thought it might crack a rib. You okay? He asked, noticing my tight grip. Yeah. Just missed you. He kissed me. Gently. Like a man who trusted me completely. If only he knew. I'm gonna shower, he said, dragging his bag inside. My blood ran cold. The shower. The guest room had its own bathroom. And it was running. Wait. I said too fast. Use the one in our bedroom. I cleaned the guest one with bleach. Super strong. It's still lingering. He paused. Okay. I forced a smile. Welcome home, baby. Mark headed upstairs. I rushed to the guest room like I was sprinting for my life. Jake stood inside, shirt off, leaning against the dresser like we were lovers sneaking in a midday tryst. Are you insane? I whispered. He grinned. Missed you too. You have to get out. No. Window. He looked at the window, then back at me. If I jump, I might break my leg. I will break your leg if you don't. He smirked but obeyed. Opened the window, carefully climbed out. I didn't breathe until I heard the soft thump of his landing and the rustle of leaves as he slinked off into the night. Upstairs, Mark called out, "Babe, where's the shampoo?" I sprinted back in like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just harbored the man I cheated with while my husband unpacked from his trip. I passed him the shampoo and kissed his cheek. I smiled. I laughed. I played the part. But inside I was shaking. Because Jake hadn't just risked everything by showing up. He'd left something behind. On the edge of the guest bed, barely tucked under the sheet. His shirt. A black cotton t-shirt with a faded band logo Mark would recognize in a second. I grabbed it and shoved it down the back of my jeans just as Mark came downstairs. "You look tense," he said, wrapping his arms around me. "Just tired," I murmured. He nodded. "Let's rest. I missed you." We curled up on the couch. Watched a movie. Ate takeout. But I didn't taste the food. I didn't hear the dialogue. Because I knew something was shifting. Jake was unraveling. And the danger wasn't just in getting caught. It was in wondering if a part of me wanted to be. Chapter 6. The Choice. It happened faster than I expected. 3 days after Mark returned, the illusion shattered. I had kept up the act, wearing guilt like perfume, trying to mask it with kisses, home-cooked meals, and sweet nothings. But guilt has a scent. It seeps through skin and smiles and seeps into the air until someone breathes it in. That someone was Mark. He found the shirt. I don't know how I missed it. I thought I had hidden it well, deep in the laundry bin under old towels. But Mark was looking for his gym stuff, and there it was. Jake's black t-shirt with the vintage band logo. Mark held it up like a crime scene relic. "Whose is this?" he asked, calm too calm. My stomach plummeted. "It's just an old shirt. Might be yours." He checked the size. "I don't wear medium. Jake does." I froze. His eyes met mine, and in that moment the world narrowed to just the two of us. No lies could live in that space. I opened my mouth, but silence came out. "Is there something you want to tell me?" he asked, voice breaking. And then came the knock on the door. Jake. As if he was summoned by drama itself. I could have screamed. Mark opened the door before I could stop him. Jake stood there with a bouquet of lilies and that smug, twisted smile. "Hey, brother," Jake said like nothing was wrong. Mark stared at him, then back at me. The pieces clicked. "Are you serious?" Mark whispered. His voice wasn't loud. That made it worse. He sounded like he'd been punched in the gut. I stepped forward, tears already blurring my vision. "Mark, But Jake cut in. "She deserves better. You treat her like furniture." I made her feel alive. "You made her feel like a liar," Mark snapped, fists clenched. "You made her feel like nothing for years," Jake shot back. And then they were shouting. Fists flew. A table crashed. I screamed for them to stop. Neighbors probably heard everything. Mark pinned Jake against the wall, rage in his eyes, but Jake just smiled through the blood on his lip. "You never deserved her." It ended with Jake walking out, laughing like he had won. Mark didn't speak to me for 2 days. He slept in the guest room. Ate in silence. Didn't look at me. When he finally did, it wasn't with hate. It was worse. It was with disappointment. "I loved you," he said. "I trusted you." I broke. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe. I tried to explain, to apologize, to rewind time. But words can't stitch the kind of wound I left. "I can't look at you and not see him," Mark whispered. "But I still love you. That's the messed up part." We sat in silence. And now I'm here. Writing this. Stuck between 2 impossible roads. I can't divorce Mark. I depend on him for everything. My home, my life, my stability. But I can't ignore Jake either. He awakened something in me I thought was dead. Desire. Passion. The feeling of being truly seen. So what do? Do I beg for Mark's forgiveness and try to rebuild a marriage I broke? Or do I chase the fire that might just burn me alive? Tell me, do I stay with the man I betrayed? Or give in to the man who ruined everything just to possess me? I can't divorce Mark. I depend on him for everything. I can't ignore Jake. He makes me feel like a real woman. What should I do? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and comment your thoughts below. Would you choose love or loyalty? And don't forget to subscribe for more true secrets every week.